Aliens in peril sent a distress call. Humanity answered with vengeance. HFY Best Reddit Stories. The stars around the planet Leora were usually calm and bright. Long lines of trade ships moved slowly between stations, and the blue-green world below glowed with quiet life. Leora was not a warrior planet. Its people believed in learning, healing, and shared growth. They trusted that the wider galaxy would respect peace. That belief died on a silent morning. Without warning, dark ships appeared at the edge of the system. They were sharp and heavy, built for fear, not beauty. No greeting was sent. No demand was made. The first attack struck Leora's outer stations, tearing them apart in seconds. Alarms screamed across space, but there was no time to prepare. On the surface, families looked up as fire streaked through the sky. Defense cannons tried to answer, but they were old and weak. The enemy ships moved like hunters who had planned this moment for years. Inside the Leoran Council Hall, the leaders stood frozen as reports flooded in. Cities were burning. Orbital shields were failing. Evacuation ships were being destroyed before they could escape. Elder Maris, the oldest among them, felt his hands shake. Leora had never fought a real war. Their fleet was small, meant only to stop pirates. This was something far worse. The attackers landed troops in several regions. They moved fast, rounding up civilians and destroying anything that could resist. Their goal was clear. They did not want control. They wanted fear. As hours passed, hope faded. One final option remained. Deep beneath the council hall was an emergency chamber sealed for centuries. Inside it stood an ancient transmitter designed to send a message across vast distances. It was not aimed at any one species. It would call to anyone who could hear. Many believed it was useless. The galaxy was large and mercy was rare. Still, Elder Maris gave the order. The distress call was sent. It carried images of burning cities, injured children, and collapsing skies. It carried words spoken with trembling voices. We are under attack. We are not soldiers. We ask for help. Then silence. The enemy continued their assault. Leora's skies darkened with smoke. The council prepared for the end. Far away in a quiet region of space, a human exploration ship drifted between stars. The vessel, named Dawn Seeker, was not built for war. Its mission was to map uncharted systems and study strange signals. Captain Elias Rowe stood on the command deck, reading routine reports. The crew was relaxed. Nothing dangerous had happened in months. Then the signal arrived. At first, it appeared as noise, broken data. Weak and damaged, the ship system struggled to clean it. When the images finally formed, the deck fell silent. The crew watched a world burn. They saw beings not so different from humans, crying, running, holding each other as fire fell from the sky. They heard the fear in their voices. No one spoke for a long moment. Lieutenant Aaron, the communications officer, swallowed hard. He had seen conflict before, but this felt different. Captain Rowe slowly sat down. His jaw tightened. Humanity had seen scenes like this in its own past. Earth had once burned the same way. The ship's computer analyzed the signal and displayed the source. Leora, outside known human space. No alliance. No treaty. Protocol was clear. Report the signal and move on. Captain Rowe ordered the message forwarded to Earth Command. Hours later, the reply arrived. Acknowledged. Await further instruction. The Dawn Seeker remained in place. The crew watched the damaged feed loop again and again. Each time, more of Leora disappeared. On Earth, the signal spread beyond military channels. News networks replayed the images. Families watched in silence. Veterans clenched their fists. Old wounds reopened in human memory. Humanity had learned survival through pain, through invasion, through standing alone. Public pressure rose fast. In hidden chambers, leaders argued. Some warned of unknown enemies and hidden traps. Others spoke of responsibility. Finally, a decision was made. Back aboard the Dawn Seeker, Captain Rowe received a secure transmission. It was short. No explanation. No debate, prepare the fleets. Rose stood and looked at his crew. He saw fear. He also saw resolve. They were explorers, not soldiers, but they were human. The ship changed course, racing toward the nearest jump gate. Behind them, the image of Leora burned into every mind. As the Dawn Seeker vanished into faster-than-light travel, no one on Leora knew help was coming. And the attackers, confident and cruel, had no idea what they had just awakened. The human fleet stirred across distant systems. Shipyards that had been silent for decades roared to life. Engineers and workers rushed to complete vessels that had been mothballed, armed with weapons designed for wars that had never been fought. Humanity did not wait for permission from the galaxy. There was no debate, no delay. A cry for help from a helpless world would not be ignored. Captain Elias Rose stood on the bridge of the Dawn Seeker, now accompanied by several new ships. Each had been fitted with faster engines and stronger shields. A small fleet, but one capable of striking deep into enemy territory. Alongside him were trusted officers. Commander Vance, known for rapid and precise decisions in simulated combat, and Dr. Hale, who had studied alien behavior and tactics extensively. Together, they were a team prepared to face the unknown. Meanwhile, across the void, the enemy watched Leora with confidence. Lord Keth, the commander of the invading fleet, believed the galaxy had no defenders who could match his cruelty. He laughed as reports reached him of the Leoran struggle. This world was weak, he thought, and weak worlds were meant to be crushed. Back on Earth, news of the human response leaked. Not officially, but enough to spark discussion among the public. Citizens cheered, their memories of past human weakness fueling a desire for action. If humanity could not ignore the suffering, they would intervene, and they would do it decisively. The Dawn Seeker's fleet moved quietly, avoiding known patrol routes and detection systems. Humanity wanted surprise. They did not want negotiation or delay. They would strike before the invaders could fully grasp the threat. On Leora, survivors fled from city to city. Families hid in crumbled buildings, while the wounded waited for help that seemed impossible. Elders whispered prayers for deliverance. Children had seen too much, their young eyes filled with smoke and fear. And all the while the enemy pressed on, their attacks unrelenting. Captain Rowe reviewed the latest intelligence from sensors. The enemy had more ships than they had expected. Their forces stretched across orbital positions and planetary defenses. A direct attack would be dangerous. Retreat was safer, but humanity did not turn from a world in need. Dr. Hale analyzed the invaders' behavior. They were efficient, yes, but predictable in certain ways. Their strikes followed patterns based on fear and intimidation. They did not anticipate sacrifice, courage, or unpredictable human tactics. The knowledge gave Rowe hope, though it did not erase the danger. Hours turned into days. The human fleet adjusted course, preparing for a jump closer to Leora. The crew trained relentlessly, drilling for every scenario. Each person knew that the coming battle would decide not just Leora's fate, but the reputation of humanity in the galaxy. As the fleet approached the system, long-range sensors detected movement. It was not the defenders of Leora, but more invaders, ships beyond the main assault, reinforcements coming faster than anyone expected. The human officers stared at the screens, calculating possibilities. Commander Vance spoke first. If we engage now, we risk being overwhelmed, but if we wait, Leora may be gone. Rowe's face was hard and calm. Then we don't wait. We fight smart, not slow. Humanity does not abandon the helpless. On Leora, the invaders sensed something unusual. The skies for a moment were empty of attack, as if the enemy feared being watched. Lord Keth frowned, sensing disturbance in the systems. Prepare for anything, he ordered, but his soldiers did not understand what was coming. The human fleet moved into position. They were small compared to the enemy, but fast, disciplined, and unseen. Their first strike would not be an act of mercy, but a calculated shock. As the jump drive engaged, every crew member held their breath. The stars stretched into lines, the ship vibrating as it slipped through space faster than light itself. No one spoke. The tension was absolute. And then they emerged near Leora's orbit. The enemy had no warning. Sensors immediately picked up the invasion fleet. Lord Keth's communications were flooded with reports of strange blips appearing too close to ignore. Panic spread through his command. The humans were here, and no one knew how many more would arrive. Captain Rowe's voice was steady over the comms. All units prepare for engagement. Protect Leora at all costs. Move fast, strike hard, and remember, they have underestimated us before. Let them regret it. In the distance, Leora's survivors watched lights streak across space. They did not know the origin. They only knew hope had arrived. The invaders tightened formation. Lord Keth's confidence wavered for the first time. He had thought no one would challenge him. Now he felt the first taste of fear. The fleet paused. The moment hung between life and death. Every human sailor and officer knew what was coming next would change everything. The universe had not yet seen humanity act in full force, and the next hours would be remembered forever. Then, the first human ship fired. The universe erupted into light and fire. The battle for Leora had begun. The human strike hit with precision. Weapons flared, tearing through enemy ships before they could react. Leoran survivors watched from below, disbelief and hope warring in their hearts. The sky, once full of terror, now burned with fire and light from two very different forces clashing above. Captain Elias Rowe's fleet moved fast, avoiding the larger enemy formations while targeting command vessels. Explosions rocked space as enemy leaders were eliminated. The invaders had never encountered an enemy who struck so quickly and without hesitation. They were confused. They were human. Commander Vance coordinated attack patterns from the bridge, his eyes scanning multiple displays. Flank left. Cut their reinforcements off. We cannot let them regroup. The human ships split into smaller squads, weaving through enemy lines. Their speed and strategy created chaos. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before now floated lifeless in space. Dr. Hale studied enemy communications, deciphering patterns. They respond only to direct threat, she said. They cannot adjust quickly to unconventional attacks. Use it, Rowe nodded. Then we will be unpredictable. On Leora, fires still burned, but hope returned. Survivors emerged from hiding to watch the humans above. Children pointed at streaks of light, believing the sky itself had joined their side. Parents whispered thanks, praying silently for safety. But even as the humans fought, they discovered a terrifying truth. Long-range scans revealed a massive enemy reinforcement fleet approaching from beyond Leora's system. Their numbers far exceeded expectations. If these ships joined the battle, both Leora and the human fleet would be at risk. Rowe convened a quick meeting. We have two options, he said. Engage them now and risk total loss, or retreat and save our strength, letting Leora suffer. Neither is easy. Commander Vance's jaw tightened. Retreat is not an option, not when innocent lives hang in the balance. Rowe agreed. We fight, but we fight smart. We use every advantage we have and strike where they least expect it. The humans launched a daring plan. They feigned retreat in one sector, drawing enemy forces away from critical Leoran cities. Then, in perfect coordination, they struck from multiple angles. Enemy ships were caught in crossfire, unable to adjust. Systems overloaded, causing chain reactions that tore through entire squadrons. Lord Keth watched from his command ship. Anger and fear twisted his features. "How can this be?" he shouted. "They are too fast, too precise. We control everything." A young officer beside him trembled. "My lord, they are humans. Their tactics, they are unlike any we've faced. We are not prepared." The invaders attempted to call reinforcements, but communications were jammed by human electronic countermeasures. Panic spread through their ranks. Ships turned on one another in confusion, colliding and exploding. Still, the threat of the incoming reinforcements loomed. Rowe studied the approaching fleet, calculating risks. He realized a direct confrontation with the entire enemy force would be deadly. But there was a way to divide and conquer, a bold, dangerous strategy that could change the tide. "Prepare boarding drones and covert teams," he ordered. "We hit their command ships, disrupt their control. If we take out the leaders, the rest will crumble." The crew worked in silence, each person aware that failure meant death. The drones were small, fast, and designed to penetrate shields. Human teams trained for years in simulations that now became real. This was no longer a game. Leora depended on them. As the first drones launched, the enemy finally realized the humans were not ordinary invaders. Panic grew, confusion spread, and their perfect order collapsed. In the chaos, Rowe's voice cut across the bridge. "Hold steady. Focus on the target. Humanity does not surrender." Explosions rippled through the enemy lines. Leoran survivors watched their oppressors falter for the first time. The sky, once filled with smoke and fear, now glowed with hope, but victory was not yet certain. The approaching reinforcement fleet still threatened to crush them all. The part ended with Rowe's eyes fixed on the dark horizon, knowing that the next move would either save Leora or cost humanity everything. The silence of space was filled with anticipation, fear, and determination, as the battle reached a deadly turning point. Humanity's counterattack escalated. Ships that had once sat idle in distant yards now blazed through space, guided by determined crews. Every maneuver was calculated, every strike precise. The humans targeted enemy supply lines, orbital stations, and command centers. Each victory crippled the invaders' ability to coordinate. Panic spread through their forces as order turned to chaos. Dr. Hale continued analyzing enemy behavior. She discovered that the invaders had been secretly attacking other worlds, erasing populations before anyone could intervene. Leora had not been the first, only the next in a long chain of destruction. Humanity's anger grew. This was no longer a simple rescue mission. It was a demand for justice. Captain Rowe led a daring mission to infiltrate the enemy's main command station. Using boarding drones and stealth fighters, they bypassed heavy defenses and planted charges to disable critical systems. Explosions inside the enemy ships tore through their networks. Orders were delayed or lost entirely. Communication breakdowns allowed human ships to strike with overwhelming force. The skies of Leora began to clear in some regions. Survivors dared to venture out of hiding, witnessing the humans' determination and the weakening enemy. Children ran to open spaces, pointing at the humans fighting in orbit, hope renewed in their young hearts. Even Lord Keth began to understand the scale of human resolve. He had underestimated them, and that miscalculation cost him. Ships under his command were destroyed, and his attempts to regroup failed. His soldiers began to question his leadership, seeing the humans as unstoppable. Fear took hold. Meanwhile, Earth and outer colonies continued sending reinforcements. The human fleets, now larger and more advanced, coordinated strikes on multiple fronts. Entire armadas of the invaders were forced into retreat, their once powerful formations crumbling under relentless human tactics. Captain Rowe, however, knew the battle was not over. Despite successes, reports indicated a desperate final plan by the enemy, a superweapon capable of annihilating the planet if the humans pressed too far. This weapon could destroy Leora even as they fought for its survival. Rowe convened his officers. "This is the moment," he said. "We stop them or Leora dies. There is no turning back." Commander Vance nodded. "We move fast, hit hard, and take nothing for granted." The human forces executed a final, coordinated strike on the superweapon's location. Boarding teams disabled shields, fighters destroyed defense grids, and precision missiles targeted core systems. Explosions rippled through the enemy structure, sending shudders across the battlefield. Lord Keth, realizing his last hope was gone, attempted to surrender. But humanity, having witnessed the scale of his crimes, refused an immediate ceasefire. They demanded the release of all prisoners and the end of further attacks across multiple systems. The part ended with the superweapon activating, a terrifying countdown visible across sensors. The humans held their positions, ready to act at the last second. The fate of Leora and the galaxy teetered on the edge, as the final act of this conflict loomed large and dangerous. The human fleet moved with unrelenting precision. Every ship, every crew member knew the stakes. The superweapon loomed above Leora like a dark promise of destruction. Captain Elia's Rose's hands were steady, but inside he felt the weight of responsibility. This was no longer just a mission. It was a test of humanity itself. Commander Vance coordinated the fleet, issuing orders that moved ships like pieces on a board. Firing sequences were calculated, shields positioned for maximum effect. Every attack, every maneuver had a purpose. Human ships weaved through debris and enemy fire, striking the superweapon's vulnerable points with devastating accuracy. Dr. Hale worked tirelessly in the command center, analyzing enemy patterns, predicting movements, and suggesting tactics. She realized that the invaders had built the weapon assuming no one would ever reach them in time. Their arrogance became their weakness. The boarding teams, already inside the superweapon's core, planted charges and neutralized power conduits. Explosions rumbled through the structure, weakening it from the inside. Enemy soldiers attempted to counter, but confusion and fear had overtaken them. Their command structure had collapsed, and their morale was gone. On Leora, survivors watched the battle above, their hearts filled with hope and fear. Children clung to their parents, pointing at flashes of light that streaked through the sky. Parents whispered prayers, silently thanking the humans who had come across the stars to save them. Lord Keth's final attempts to salvage the situation ended in failure. His forces were scattered, his ships destroyed or captured. Desperation filled his command as the humans closed in. He realized that his reign of terror had come to an end. The superweapon, weakened by human sabotage, began to malfunction. Explosions tore through its structure, sending debris into space. The humans held their positions, ensuring that every remaining threat was neutralized. The countdown stopped just moments before detonation, and the weapon lay in ruin. The battlefield fell silent. Smoke and fire lingered, but Leora had survived. The survivors emerged cautiously, seeing the humans above them, alive and victorious. They could hardly believe that help had come from so far away, that a species they had never known could fight so fiercely on their behalf. Captain Rose's ship hovered above Leora, the crew exhausted but unbroken. The planet was safe, and the invaders were defeated. Humanity had answered the call and had done so with decisive vengeance. They had proven that no one would be ignored when in peril. Rose sent a final transmission across the galaxy. It was simple and firm. Do not prey on the helpless. Humanity watches and it acts. The Leoran people honored the humans, not as conquerors, but as guardians who had come across the stars to defend them. The sky was quiet now, filled with hope instead of fear. Children laughed, families rebuilt, and a world once on the brink of annihilation began to heal. Captain Rowe looked at his crew. Each face was weary, scarred by battle, but proud. Humanity had shown its strength, its courage, and its resolve. They would return to their distant systems, but their message echoed across the stars. And somewhere, far beyond the reaches of Leora, other civilizations listened, knowing that if they threatened the innocent, humanity would come again. The universe had witnessed a new force, and it would remember. The humans left the system, the stars returning to calm. Yet the echoes of their vengeance, their courage, and their mercy remained. Leora survived, the invaders defeated, and humanity had answered the call, proving that when the helpless cry for aid, the human spirit does not hesitate and it never forgets.